And that moment and that day started me on a journey that has really ended up in a lot of freedom. Day by day, I would sit down with my devotional for the next 2 months, and every devotional I read was about surrendering control. And it started really specifically. It started with the everyday things in life, like your watch, your day timer, your alarm clock. And the Lord saying, will you give me control? Will you let me break into your agenda? If you want to wake up at 8 a.m., but I want to wake you up at 6, will you say yes? Or if you've got an appointment at 2 o'clock, but I want you to stop and talk to that person, will you say yes? Will you let me break in? And so I just responded and said, yeah, okay, Lord, yeah, I give you permission. I give you control of all of those things. And I give you permission to break into my agenda every day. And I felt like he said, good, thank you. But will you give me more? And that particular day, as I drove to work, I just said out loud to the Lord, God, I give you my car. I give you my house. I give you my money. I give you my family. And I just kind of went down the list. But when I was saying it, tears started rolling down my face, and I could feel in my belly a stirring and a whirlwind, and like a shift was happening. And in that moment, as that was happening, the Lord reminded me, just a month prior, I was in Nashville, Tennessee on 7707, the call Nashville. And I was receiving prophetic ministry from Morning Star, and I was given a word, and part of the word was, I feel like the Lord is saying, don't be afraid to launch out into the deep. Get off the shoreline. And she also said, and I feel like you're going to be moving to a different place, but it's going to require a level of trust and faith, a greater level of trust and faith. Well, everything else they were speaking to me was spot on, but that statement of get off the shoreline, what are you talking about? I really didn't know what she was talking about. So a few days later, I just sat down with the Lord and asked him, God, what are you talking about? Get off the shoreline. And I felt like he said, it's in your finances. And I had the thought for the very first time, well, I guess you're right. It doesn't take faith for me to get my paycheck. I get paid whether I show up to work or not. And I had the thought, if you ever asked me to quit my job, that would definitely be launching out into the deep. Well, I had no idea at the time that that's exactly what he was going to ask me to do in a matter of weeks. And so I was in the car, so I prayed that prayer. I gave him control and permission, and I surrendered everything, and I felt a shift. And I remember feeling an urgency in that moment of spend as much time with your family as possible. And so the next week, July 18th, was my birthday. I was turning 35 years old, and I had planned to go skydiving. I just thought it'd be a cool thing to do. I want to remember this birthday. Let's do it. Well, what I didn't know was it was really the Lord using it. And that morning, he said to me, Michelle, what you're doing today is a prophetic act, because I'm going to ask you to jump off the edge with me. And I thought, cool, that sounds great. Had no idea what he was talking about. And that morning, originally, I had asked a girlfriend to go with me. I wanted to go, with a friend and have fun and let's do this together. But at the last minute, she had to drop out. And I was kind of upset, not with her, but I was upset with God. I'm like, are you kidding me, God? It's my birthday. Do I have to go alone? This isn't fun. And I almost backed out, and I was going to call the place. And I did call the place and told them, hey, my friend can't come. I'm not sure if I should come. And they said, don't worry about it. There'll be other people jumping out of the plane with you. We'll train you for 30 minutes and then you'll go. It'll be great. So I hung up the phone, got in my car, drove home. And as soon as I got on the interstate, which was only for about 2 minutes, it was one exit, the Lord put a vehicle right in front of me with the words this big across the back of the window, skydive. And there was a little parachute guy just confirming, I want you to go. And not only that, he started talking to me about going alone. And he said, Michelle, I want you to go alone because I don't want you to lean on anybody else for support or for encouragement. And he showed me a picture of a ladder. And you know, when you're climbing a ladder, you can't wait for somebody else to climb with you. You just have to climb yourself, and if they choose to follow, great. But if they don't, you can't worry about that. And he said it's the same with me. If the higher you want to go in God, you have to go alone. It's like the wedding feast. They invited all the guests, but some couldn't come because they were busy with this or busy with that. And it's not that they were bad people, it was just they were busy. But if you want to go higher in God, you have to go alone. And so I was like, okay, I'm supposed to go alone. So that morning I get in the car and drive an hour to Indiana and get out of the car, and was expecting training for 30 minutes in a group of people. But that didn't happen. There was literally a group of people, like it looked like they were waiting for me. They threw me in a room, watch this 5-minute DVD, here, sign this stack of papers, signing your life away basically, and then they were hooking me up to my jump master. Well, as we're walking towards the plane, I just look at my jump master and I say, aren't you supposed to show me something? And he just smiles and says 2 words. He says, I will. And I'm thinking, when? We're getting on the plane. So anyway, so I'm doing fine. I had Alex is the guy that videotaped the whole event, and he, kind of interviews you. How you doing? Happy birthday. And he's like, how you doing? And I said, I'm good. Are you nervous? No, I'm not nervous. And we're on the plane. I'm doing great. Because in my mind, I am picturing watching 10 people jump out and get my nerve up and then go, I can do it. But halfway up into the air, they open the door. And that's when it hits me, because I am literally 6 inches from the doorway, and it hits me. Wait a minute. I'm by the door. That means I'm first. And I look in panic at Alex and say, am I first? And he's like, yeah. And I said, no, I am not supposed to be first. And sheer panic hits me. I can't hardly breathe. My head goes back. I'm just trying to get air. And my jump master finally leans up and says something to me. And he says, are you okay? And I said, I'm praying. And in that moment, I can hear the Holy Spirit whispering to me, surrender. Surrender. And so I'm breathing deep, just saying, okay, God, I trust you. I'm first. And in that moment, I could feel, okay, I'm coming. I came back to peace and I was fine. Well, it turns out they were just kind of joking with us and opened the door just to get fresh air. We were only halfway up. So 10 minutes later or so, we're at the right altitude. They open the door. Finally, the guy leans up and says, okay, now I need you to put your thumbs right here, lean your head back, and throw your arms out. And so I said, okay, thumbs here, head back, arms out. And just like that, we were out of the plane, free falling, and it was awesome. Alex, who was the guy videotaping me, he was there. It was the coolest thing. He was, as we were free falling, he was reaching his hand out and holding my hand as we were going down. And no fear. It was just awesome. So when I'm driving home, again, the Lord just starts talking, and he says, Michelle, the reason why you had to go first is because you're a forerunner. And I had never heard that word before. He said, I'm going to ask you to do things you've never seen anybody else do before. And it may look scary, and it may even be life-threatening. But in that moment, I want you to do what you did on the plane. I want you to lean your head back on my chest and breathe deep and tell me you trust me. And he just began to say, because when you're free falling with me, the idea when you free fall, the reason why you have to lean your head back and your arms out is so it creates the illusion of one body so they can actually steer you. And if you don't lean back, you'll both actually start to spin out of control. And a couple days later, when I went to church, I got to church and the message was entitled Surrendered Obedience. And I thought, whoa, this message is not over. This lesson's not over. And at the altar time, as I stood up front worshiping, I felt the Lord say, when you're free falling with me, Michelle, in life, I want you to do what you did on the plane, what they told you to do. I want you to lean your head back and put your arms out. And I said, oh, well, that's a surrender of worship. That's a picture of worship. And he said, yeah, I want you to worship me and not worry. Because so many times when we're free falling, we look down and we see, my rent's due. I don't know how I'm going to pay this or do that. And when we do that, panic hits you. And when I was free falling, if I would have looked down, I would have thought, I am plunging to the ground. I could die at any minute. When are you going to pull the chute? And it would have ruined the whole experience because I would have been afraid. And I would have been worrying about when is he going to pull the chute. But since I was looking up, I never even thought of that. I never even thought for a minute about any of it. I wasn't afraid. I was just having the time of my life. And that's what it looks like to surrender control and to keep your head up on him, because he is in control. And he said, your job is to surrender and obey. My job is to be in control. And I just love that.